have one now. Oh, what a finish! Peach of a strike from Simon Gillett.
Just felt like this was going to happen, and it did.
Southampton are Wembley winners.
The physical level in the Premier League is bigger than it's ever been. You walked in there every day and you think, this is a great club. Like,
He won the game for Forest.
been involved in getting a young lad signed from Vasco da Gama. Get in the showers or something, because you make me feel sick looking at you.
How do you make me feel sick if I look at you?
Good, honest guy who was the complete opposite of what I was getting from the first agency that I signed with, really.
Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Midas Meets. On today's episode I'm joined by a man who's played for the likes of Southampton, Bournemouth and Nottingham Forest, a man who's won at Wembley 2 times, may I add, and a man who is now currently head scout at Chelsea Football Club. I'm of course delighted to announce that I am joined by Simon Gillett. Simon, how are you doing today, mate? Good to see you.
Yeah, great, mate. Really good. Had a busy day today, but it's good to get on here and have a chat with you.
No, thank you for coming on, mate. Well, before we get into things, talk to you about your career and what you're up to now and your own outlook on the industry itself, I think it might be good to do a little bit of an icebreaker, a little bit of a five-a-side. I'm sure you've seen these before. You're a man who's played for quite a few big teams in your time, obviously Bristol City being one of them, may I add. So going into it, I want you to talk to me about some of your teammates and maybe build me a bit of a dream five-a-side. You can even put yourself in there if you want to.
Yeah, I'd have to go in it. I'd have to go in it. I love five-a-side. I wish there was a proper professional league for five-a-side. That'd have been all right.
I think about that all the time. It would sell. It really would sell.
Isn't PK doing something? Isn't he at Barcelona? He's doing like a mini thing. So I love five-a-side. So the trouble is with five-a-side, you got to have like the right people, because the best players aren't necessarily the best five-a-side people. So
True.
It's a bit tactical.
See, there's that scout in mind already at it.
Yeah. I think the keeper's an easy one. That is Joe Hart. He came on loan at Blackpool as a young lad over from Man City, and it was only for a short period, but straight away I was just like, yeah, who's this guy? He's an absolute animal in terms of his size and everything, and his confidence was through the roof. Great lad.
Yeah.
Kicking was brilliant. So he was the best keeper, and he quickly, I don't know where he went after. I don't know whether he went back to Man City and played, or he went out on another loan. But yeah, he was top draw from early on, and has had a great career.
Cool, that's quite the start, isn't it? England #1 and Premier League winner Joe Hart. Nice.
No, he's great lad. Whenever I bump into him, which isn't often, but he's always he's one of those guys, proper humble, really nice lad. He's a good guy. The second one, some people might not know, but as a youth player, was top drawer, and I honestly believe he could have been an England centre back had things sort of gone his way. Is Martin Craney. He had a really good career. Didn't reach the heights I think everyone that was close to him thought he would, just for whatever reason. There's a bit of luck and injuries, and you know how it is in football, but. In terms of his ability as a young lad, he came through. He was playing a year or 2 years up at times from an early age, and then when he got in the first team, I remember his first team debut for Southampton away at Chelsea. He actually scored an own goal.
Strong.
In terms of the player, honestly, brilliant footballing centre half, really good awareness, great on the ball, calm, top player. I've just got really good memories of playing with him and also against him later in my career. He'd be good at the back five-a-side because he can play.
No,
as long as there's no own goals.
Yeah, exactly.
So Joe Hart, Martin Craney. Obviously, you've got to go in next.
Yeah, I've got to go in there. Just I'll bring the level down a little bit. But, the next one's easy as well. Top five-a-side player, top. Sort of Premier League and international player, Adam Lallana.
Was that at Southampton?
Yeah, came through at Southampton a year or two behind me, and again, he was another one early on. There was a lot of promise. Probably didn't come through really as quickly, but once he did, and he settled in the side, it was just no looking back. He ended up as a captain at Southampton, highly regarded there, and obviously he's gone on, had a wonderful career. Really important for Klopp at Liverpool when they were building. has won it all, and it was even England Player of the Year, I think, one year.
Yeah, I think England Player of the Year 2016. I think maybe 2017, but yeah, around then.
His ability on the ball, frightening, like manipulation of the ball, like tight turns, his drag backs, his like ease on both feet.
Yeah.
Brilliant to watch, brilliant to play with, and like another one, top lad, like great lad. So yeah, you'd have to go in there. The striker one is a difficult one. There's a few, depending on what sort of size pitch you'd on.
You've played with quite a few top strikers in your time. I mean, Antonio, Ricky Lambert, Kiefer Moore, maybe.
Yeah, there's been a few years. Like it's quite a few. Like I go back to my youth days. Leon Best and Dexter Blackstock, very good. Like they went on and had really good careers as well. But in a five-a-side, I think I'm going to choose Billy Sharp. He's like proper poacher.
Yeah.
Like horrible to play against.
But you need that five-a-side. You need that physicality.
It lets the opposition know they're like, they can't rest. He gets after people, and like he's an absolute finisher. So, there's loads of players that could have gone in, like James Coppinger at Doncaster, great footballer. Johnny Oster, Jermaine Ginnis, like loads of really good players like that I've been able to play with, and them show how much better they are than me.
Okay, so let me read it back to you. We have Joe Hart in goal. We have Martin Crane at the back. We have a midfield two of you, and Adam Lallana, and then Billy Sharp up top. Now, PK, if you're watching, sign this lot up. Perfect. Now, I think we should get into it a little bit. We talked there about some of the clubs you've played for and some of your earlier memories in the sport. Now, I want you to take me back to perhaps your earliest memory. What is your earliest memory of playing football back when you were a wee lad?
Yeah, we did just been sort of locally. I didn't start playing football, certainly not as early as they do now. I think I must have been like 6 or 7 before I started really sort of playing and go to a team or some sort of training. I remember going to like this school hall where we did some training, and I made some sort of tackle, a block tackle, and the other lad ended up worse off than I did.
What, you thought, I enjoy this, I want to do this a bit more?
That was kind of how it started, and just played locally, enjoying it, playing with my friends. And then my first real memory that I can think of on TV of like watching football is World Cup '94. I can't remember like '92. So '94, I think I was 8. Yeah, I was 8 in that summer. So watching that, I totally got into football after that. That was me. I loved like watching it, the games. I remember like quite a lot that happened in that World Cup, even though England won.
Was there a player at the World Cup that kind of took your eye or inspired you in some way?
I don't know. I think I loved the like Brazilian. I remember the Brazil-Italy final, which wasn't a great final, but like those two teams, and like I hadn't seen anything. I haven't seen anything of sort of like teams abroad and stuff. I remember like people were rooting for like Ireland. Ray Houghton scored a great goal, I remember, in that World Cup. But yeah, that's my first sort of memories, and I was into it. I remember coming in off the street, like just playing out the front and coming in to watch the games and stuff. So yeah, that's what got me in.
And going on from there, moving on a bit from injuring other kids in the school hall, what were your first memories of kind of joining Southampton? When did that come about? Was that a little bit later?
No, so I think around 9 or 10, I went to Chelsea, and I was in the School of Excellence there for 2 seasons, I think. And it was just sort of training once a week, no games. It was sort of like just me and another lad locally had done quite well, and we went. I can't really remember the trials or anything, but we just were in, and then we trained there sort of once a week. And my dad and the other lad's dad, Sean, took it in turns to drive us and stuff. So that was my first sort of taste of sort of professional club like involvement. Then we all got released, like me and Sean, and I think everyone sort of like in that year got released, and I was gutted at the time, but actually it meant I could go and play with my mates a bit more and focus on that. And that was for the next couple of years. That was my focus, just playing with my mates. we had quite a good team locally.
What was the team?
It's Tame Boys.
Okay.
That's where I grew up in Oxfordshire, and yeah, it was just great fun, just with all my mates. You know, we're at school together, going to play football together, and really good. But there was a scout, Malcolm Elias, who was an Oxford United scout at the time, who'd rung and rung and rung and wanted me to come to Oxford, and I didn't want to. I didn't really want to. I just wanted. I was quite shy, and I wanted to stay with my mates and just concentrate on that really. But he said to my dad, "Okay, well when you want to come like and have a trial or whatever, ring me." And I think it wasn't until I was about 12, which I think I must have discussed it with my dad, and we'd rung him. And by this time, Malcolm was at Southampton. So that in the school holidays, I think it was 6 weeks. Most of the 6 weeks, I was there, like going down training at a school down in Southampton. And funnily enough, when I went, there was two lads that I'd played against locally that were like in Buckinghamshire, sort of across the leagues. So I vaguely knew them, but it was brilliant. Straight away, I felt like it. You know, I was supposed to be there. I loved the coach, Dave Puckett, absolute legend. Like really fun. Like what a guy, just great coach. Got the best out of all of us. You know, made it really fun and learned loads. And I went on another trial at Reading as well, and I could have gone to either, but Southampton, it was a no-brainer. Just
that first impression just kind of just took you.
Definitely, yeah. It's just like where the training was, how professional it felt, but also like really fun. The lads that were there, it was great. So yeah, I think I was when I was 12. Yeah, not long coming into my 13th birthday.
Yeah. And going on from there, at what age was it, and at what point in your career was it where you started to be represented by us here at Midas?
Yeah, so I joined full time when I was 16 at Southampton, and I didn't have an agent to start with, and then sort of like people started to sort of meet agents, you know, when you've signed a scholarship then, and I didn't have anyone for the first year. Second year, I don't know how it came about. The people must have come in and spoken to us, but I signed with another agency, but it quickly became apparent that that was a bad move. Spoke to Steve, and again, it was one of those things. I met him and Tim Bailey, who he went to see the other day, he said, and it just felt right straight away. You know, like honest, like really good. He had a professional career. He was clear in what he was saying. It just felt right. So signed with Steve. I think I must have been I think I might have been 18 at that point, maybe coming up to 18. And that was it. Yeah, that was my first involvement with Steve. I know exactly where I met him, in Henley at a pub. Got a drink and stuff, and just with my dad, and that was it. Yeah, I stayed with Steve for the rest of my career.
And what impact did Steve have on your, I want to say, was it 14-year career, roughly around then?
Yeah, probably. Because it was cut a bit short with injury, but yeah, really good. You know, like I see him as like a father figure. You know, like
he's gonna love that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, his head would be swelling. But he is one of those guys. You know, I've got good parents, but he's always been one of those guys that I can go to, and he'll tell me honestly. He'll be considered in what he'll tell you. You know, just thoughtful, understands the world of football as well, which my parents didn't as much. You know, they hadn't got any sort of experience in football, like certainly in a professional level. And you know, he's just a good guy, good, honest guy, who was the complete opposite of what I was getting from the first agency that I'd signed with, really.
Going on from now, obviously you're speaking about Southampton. You're someone that's played for the likes of Bournemouth and Nottingham Forest as well. Now, when you were at these teams, did you feel, maybe most particularly in the case of Bournemouth, who have more recently come to the top flight, did you have this shared quality, or was this shared feeling around these three clubs that felt like these teams were going right to the very top?
I think at the time I went to each of them, or was at each of them, it was really different. Southampton, I came in. They were in the Premier League. The first year I was there, they got to the final of the FA Cup with Gordon Strachan, and like really good squad. For me, like the resources, the training ground, and everything was amazing. You know, like that. I was someone that always liked training, but the training ground and everything was amazing. It just wanted. It just made you want to go and train and get the best out of yourself every day. I went on loan to Bournemouth, and it couldn't have been further apart in terms of like how much resources they'd got. They were in League One at the time, but you know, it was in a tough period for the club where, you know, money was tight, and you know, we'd train on sort of like, I think it was like Cantley Park, or a school, and yeah, it was. I didn't have the feeling that they'd go on to do what they did.
Oh, really? Okay.
At that time.
Yeah.
It was always a really nice club, you know, like the fans are good. I love the ground. Even now, like I know it's one of the smallest, or it is the smallest in the Premier League, but there's something about it that I really like.
Very intimate.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and it's just a nice club. Like good people were there through the years. Certainly when I was there, it was good people, and there was a couple of good players that had come in on loan as well as me. Jack Cork came in, Ryan Bertrand from Chelsea at the time. Plus the players that had got signed there. Darren Anderton, like played with him at the end of his career. Like what a player! Like couldn't get around the pitch as he used to be able to, but like in terms of his passing and everything, like excellent. Someone to learn off of. A big Fletch up front. He's obviously still there now, and yeah, it was a good place to go on loan and learn. Nottingham Forest was different to that. That was more towards like Southampton.
It's an iconic football club, really, isn't it?
Definitely. You walk in. It was the same as well. Like it didn't really matter where I was and where I trained, but you walked in there every day and you think, this is a great club. Like it's so inspiring, the history, but also the professionalism around the club, the facilities. It's one of my regrets really, is that I didn't get. I played the best football of my career at Nottingham Forest, but it was cut short by decisions that were out of my hands really. But in terms of the club, it's fantastic, and yeah, it's great to see them doing well. I've sort of supported them and became a fan like of the club since I'd left.
Are there any clubs that you've seen from the outside that you kind of look at and think, this club's got what it takes to go right to the very top, like a bit of a sleeping giant, or something you look at and think they've got that little something special as well that you saw in these other clubs?
I don't know. It's so difficult now. I mean, there's so many. You look at the Championship and League One. There's so many big clubs that have probably been in top flight at some point. There's not many really nowadays that haven't. You look at Sheffield United again; they look like they might be coming back up, and like it's a massive sort of club that have at times had periods in League One and down below. And I don't know. It's there's so many big teams, and it also to do with the money. You know, the parachute payments obviously helps coming down from the Premier League. Yeah, it's a difficult one to say. I always look at my old teams, whoever I've played for, and you know, Bristol's a great club. Like you want them to do well, and certainly they've got. It's another one really good setup. It's only improved since I'd left. You know, they've done work at the training ground and the ground. I guess you could say that's maybe a sleeping giant, and I'm sure you'll be.
I'll take it. I'm not going to argue with that.
I'd love to see him do well and go up the league.
Now, you touched on Southampton there winning the FA Cup final. Now, you yourself have brought Southampton to Wembley, which I believe was it 2010, and also Blackpool in 2007. Talk to me about that experience of playing at Wembley. What's it like?
Yeah, it was amazing at the time. I went on loan to Blackpool at the start of the season. It was into the season. I think it might have been sort of end of August, September time, I think. And I went for a 3-month period, came back, went on loan to Bournemouth, and then I went back for the rest of the season from the end of January to the end of the season. And it was that was another another one. The resources and everything at the club, like really sort of tight and not grand. The training ground, you're in porter cabins, it's so windy, but it kind of made everyone sort of really come together. And the group that we got at the time was brilliant. Wes Houlihan, very good player. Ian Evett, centre back. Ben Burgess up front, like good lads that are like got good sort of grounding and I don't know. They've learnt their trade sort of thing. Not had it easy, and the group came together brilliantly, and we had this great run towards the end of the season. Was strong into the end of the season, got in the playoffs, and then it kind of felt like that was just going to happen. It was. We were really confident.
Yeah, you just had a bit of belief behind you.
Yeah, definitely, and everyone was just pulling the same way, and it just felt like this was going to happen, and it did. Like that, I didn't start the game; I came on towards the end, but it was great to be a part of. Like, you really wanted everyone to do well, and like everyone sort of deserved their success, and it's a great experience. I was only 21, play at Wembley and in front of my family, win as well, and take them up.
Yeah.
It was a really good time. And to be fair, Simon Grayson was the manager at the time, and he was good. He was good with the lads. He had a good balance when to sort of read us the right act when we needed it, and be fun and part of the bunch, because I don't think he was not long retired as a player, and it was good. It was good. He was another one you wanted him to do well.
And what would you say as a player stepping on those hallowed grounds? What is the most special thing about it?
Yeah, I don't know. It was one of those moments that I certainly at that age, I wish I could have taken it in a little bit more. It was
really?
pretty sort of like, it was a big thing. Obviously, you're coming on huge ground. Like the stadium was, I think it was like 70,000 in there. Yeah. So it was like there was a lot of people in there, and it was brilliant, especially in front of my family. From where I grew up, it was really easy to get everyone up. So my friends and family all came. I remember it was absolutely hammering it down. And I think I was more worried about whether I need to wear studs or like.
Priorities, nice.
Yeah. So it was just amazing. It is one of those things. I look at pictures, like it came up not long ago. Someone sent me a picture and celebrating. And I guess in the moment you wish you can make the most of it, and that's what I'd advise anyone to like really try and take all those moments in, because at the start of your career you think, oh, these are going to come along all the time, but you might not ever get to Wembley again, or you're lucky to sort of get there anyway. So.
And is that something that changed in your mindset by the time you got to 2010? Were you kind of thinking that I'm not going to get here every season, I need to kind of appreciate these moments every time they come around? Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, I definitely had got to the point where I knew I needed to appreciate it, because you just never know. I certainly was of the belief I could go there again, whether in what capacity I don't know. You hoping to always get promoted and stuff, what number one in the league or whatever, but you hope that you could. And I think if things had been different at Forest and the ownership hadn't made certain decisions, we'd have probably at least gone in the playoffs, and we had a squad good enough to go up from the Championship that year. But at Southampton, I was able to take that in a bit more. That was special because that was my last game for Southampton, and obviously I'd been there for quite a long time, over 10 years, and from when I went down to that school with Dave and like was training, and it was a nice sort of like way to sort of bow out at Southampton, and my path has sort of got blocked, and I hadn't played that much, and it's something actually I'm really grateful to Alan Pardew, who was the manager. I hadn't played much that season. And for whatever reason, he involved me, and I got on for a good amount of time in the game. So, yeah, I'm thankful for him for that. And it even meant Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain was in the stand instead of me. I got his bench.
Oh, no.
So, yeah, it was a great way to finish at Southampton, and obviously we won as well. So that was amazing.
See, that's the thing. I've been to Wembley a couple of times, not to watch a game or anything, but more just to walk around the pitch and do like tours, etc. And I even think back to my time playing football, like at a non-leveler as a kid, at school, whatever. I'm just thinking, this is the pinnacle. Like from the bottom, that's the start, and this is the finish. And did you have that when you kind of went from that little lad that was injuring other players in the school hall, so playing there as a player in a cup final? Like, could you feel how mental that was? Like the magnitude of like from start to finish, like where you were.
Yeah, I think the second time, yeah, you realise like it was full, like pretty much. It was like a big thing, certainly from Southampton, because we'd dropped down the leagues, and it's a big club to be in League One at the time. And yeah, it was great. Like it was great because I'm not a fan of any club, but because I joined Southampton at the age I did and spent some time, I was and still am. I still look out for their results. Probably one of the first clubs I look for at the weekend. So it was great that everyone had that day off the back of like not so good times. And I remember, we got the coach back down to Southampton, had a great night that night, and the cups there, and we went to a hotel, and it was just great. It was brilliant for everyone, and even everyone behind the scenes. I know it gets said a lot, but it really is great to like see them celebrating and getting the joy and the success, because everyone's input that works closely with the first team. It matters. It's great for the club, and obviously they've come back up. I know they're struggling this year a little bit, but it's an excellent club, and hopefully the end of the season running for them will be a bit better for them.
Now, you've spoken a little bit about Bristol City and Nottingham Forest. Now, someone who managed you at both clubs, as well as Doncaster, was of course Sean O'Driscoll. Now, what was it like to be managed by him, and what was it about you that you think worked quite well within his own management style?
The first thing I'd say is I'm probably one of the players that annoyed him the least.
There's a compliment in there somewhere.
I can put up with him. That's what I think he's thinking was. No, he's a great guy, Sean. He's very intelligent. His game sort of intellect and stuff was probably beyond like a lot of people, and I could understand him, and he could understand me, and he asked me to fulfill certain roles in the team when certain people or quite a lot of players aren't wanting to do, just like restrict themselves so that other people can benefit, whereas I didn't really mind doing that, and I just liked being able to compliment other people. He'd call, when we're at Forest, he'd call me into the office and say, like, I'm thinking this, what do you think? And he sort of, I understood his way of thinking and helped him get his message across. I think he said it openly, like he needed a bit of glue at Forest, and he'd learned from Doncaster that I could be that. And it was the same when he went to Bristol again. They were struggling, and he felt like, who can get my message across? Who knows how to get it across quickly and in the right way? And we just seemed to click. And I mean, he's a particular type of person, Sean. He can be quite dry and not sort of that warm at times. But I think he's a brilliant guy, great manager, and he was really harshly treated at Nottingham Forest to lose his job there. Like we'd won Boxing Day against Leeds at home on Sky. I think we'd moved into a point outside the playoffs, or joint points, and then I went out for a meal, and me and Lee Camp, the goalkeeper, had got a message saying, come in normal time tomorrow. Like Sean's leaving the club by sort of mutual consent or whatever. And we were absolutely flying. The year before Sean and I joined, Forest only just escaped relegation. So to get to Christmas, just outside the playoffs, and like really starting to build momentum.
Big turnaround.
Yeah, it was a big shock. But he was soon into a job at Bristol, and then later that allowed me to go there, which was great experience.
That ability is the kind of glue of the changing room, if you were. Is that something that you think he instilled in you, or do you think that's maybe something that you had from quite an early age, maybe at Southampton or even before then?
Yeah, I think I developed it early on. When I came into Southampton at at 16 full time. I had a French coach, George Prost, who was amazing, technical coach. But then the under 19s manager, who I later went under, Stuart Henderson. He's the one really that got it out of me. He made me captain. I went captain in the 17s, 19s, and reserves. Yeah, and I think I think that's a skill of mine. I can read people quite well and in football terms and be able to try and compliment them and get the best out of them.
Mm.
And some people need some people need to you get them in a headlock, and some people you need to just sort of like cajole along and like say, "Come on, you're better," or you're doing
Yeah.
this or you're doing that great. But Sean definitely helped with that. Like he gave me the confidence, and he wanted me to get across certain messages, and then it sort of naturally came out. But he definitely helped with that.
Perfect. Well, going on from there, you obviously mentioned earlier about your injury record. Talk to me a little bit about your injury history and perhaps the most difficult thing about being injured, apart from the pain, obviously. Obviously.
No, yeah, it's a difficult one. It's a really difficult place to be in, especially if it's going to be a long term, because depending on the manager, like you're no used to them, so you're often out the way. Your schedule's different. You're coming in at different times because they're focusing on the players that are fit and able to play, and getting ready for the game or games. So it can be a really difficult, can be really lonely. I've heard a lot of people say the same. It's a lonely place.
Yeah.
It's often one-on-one sort of stuff, and you're just not you're not involved with the squad, and it's totally different. They're coming in, getting ready, doing their like pre-activation or whatever, and then going out to training, and then you're starting your sort of physio work and um, trying to get back to full fitness.
Mm.
I think I was out almost 11 months after about 5 months of being in out in out in out. So it was quite a long time overall.
Mm.
It's difficult to stay motivated at times, but it's important. You just got to get good people around you. You got to focus on getting yourself back to your full fitness, which will happen. You just got to make sure you put the effort into doing it.
Mm.
And I guess maybe it's a chance. I've seen more and more people speak about interests like outside of football, and the discussion
Mm.
about, is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing?
Yeah.
People have got businesses on the side now, and I've seen a lot of talk about it being distracting and stuff. But often these come about.
Well, exactly, because I was going to ask you that. Like, when you're out for these long periods, like you said, like 11 months, like, what did you do to stave off the boredom during times like that?
Yeah, I mean, I had the worst sort of 8 weeks to start with. I had my operation, and I was straight into like a CPM machine, which I'll have to get you the video. Like I had to just sit in it for 8 hours a day, like, and it just like bends and straightens your leg.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah, a block of 4 hours in the morning, a break for lunch, and then another 4 hours for 8 weeks. It
Could
was
you like watch TV when you're on it, watch a film or whatever?
the TV. I was reading books. That's what I did. So I watched TV, reading books. I started to get into like property, and like I wanted to always build a house or really develop a house, and
Mm.
that was the time when I sort of like that seed sort of started came into my head. And when I finished my career, that's what I did straight away. I went and bought a house and totally redeveloped it.
Mm.
So yeah, just keeping your mind active. I didn't use it in terms of learning, but I think you can go down that route,
Mhm.
in terms of qualifications, if that's what you're looking at. I'd
Mhm.
probably, if I was going to go back, I would do that. I would do
Yeah.
that a little bit earlier. Um, yeah, and just it's a big football consumes you when you're involved in it, but the injury can give you time to think, oh well, there's more to life than just football. Of course, you
Yeah.
need to focus on getting back in from injury, but you
Mm.
can focus a little bit on people that you love, or your family and stuff and friends around you that often you don't have time to really have interaction with, on a good basis. The amount of times that you don't see your friends and stuff. So just trying to remain positive. It is a difficult situation and it's never nice for anyone, but there's some small positives that you can take out of it. And if that's spending more time with people you care about, then, I focus on that.
Was it difficult during periods like that, like say the lads go out and get a win or get a good result or whatever, and you're trying to integrate into that, or what did it feel like to be a part of that, kind of being stood a little bit isolated from it all?
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one. Like, to be fair, I found it really frustrating because we were on a terrible run of form and the team was really struggling, and I was one of the senior players, and I felt like I just wanted to go and help.
Yeah, and get involved.
Yeah, just like whatever it was. So, it was really frustrating in that sense. I don't know. I've heard different stories. I've heard some managers sort of don't want to see injured players and feel like it's even bad luck. Like they don't want. There's a famous one with Neil Warnock where he says, "Oh, go on, whatever."
Yeah, when he goes, "Yeah, get him out of here. I don't want to look at him. Get him out."
He literally says, "Get in the showers or something because you make me feel sick looking at you."
Yeah, that's the one. Did you never get that treatment?
No, I didn't. But it is and can be lonely, but it is difficult. That's the thing. You want to be playing football, and I know, like it gets labelled at footballers. Or does he want to play football and does he want to do this? Well, from my experience, if anyone's out injured, it's the worst because that's all you want to do. A lot of lads don't even bother with the end of school, the last few years of school, because they're all in football. So it is literally their life.
So from life in football to life after football, obviously you spoke there about getting qualifications and doing property, etc., etc., etc. Obviously, you are now a head scout at Chelsea Football Club. Why did you initially decide to go into scouting? Because, of course, some players, when they retire, they go into punditry or they go into coaching. Why scouting?
It was a combination of stuff. It was, what's the word? I'd sacrificed a lot to have a career in football, in terms that I needed to work really hard. I needed to be on my A game every day to make sure that I got the best out of myself and had the longevity in my career. I wasn't, some people were supremely talented and stuff. I was more of a worker, and my quality was, at a good level, but I needed to make sure I was at it. So I became really focused and dedicated to having a career. And I thought about coaching, and I thought straight away that you've got to have the same sort of mentality, in terms that you need to be places when you're told to be there. The games, everything revolves around the games. So from a selfish point of view, I wanted to be nearer to people I care about, my family and everything. So that didn't appeal to me, and I didn't have the bug for it. Some people speak about getting the bug for coaching and stuff, and I did my first coaching badge, and I didn't have the bug for it. Punditry and stuff never was really of an interest or that big a thing, really. It was Gary Neville and Carragher came a few years later, but it's grown and grown and grown. Now you see lots of people on, which is, I love that. That's great.
Yeah.
And also my career ended really quickly, so it was a sort of snap decision. I was very fortunate in that Steve had a meeting with Bournemouth, with Richard Hughes, and they were expanding their scouting department down at Bournemouth. They wanted to bring on 2 new guys. He set up a meeting with Richard, and then I went down, and then sort of like a few weeks later I was starting. That was literally the summer I'd decided that I couldn't carry on. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I was a bit fortunate. I didn't really have a real nailed on plan. So I thought, you know what, this is a great opportunity. Like, I'll give it a go.
Yeah.
And it always interests me. Like, lads used to take the mick out of me, although they always used to join in. It's like, I played Champ Manager for fun.
Do you even play that as a player?
Yeah.
Wow.
like on coach journeys, especially when you're down in Southampton, like it's long journeys often. So yeah, we'd be like me and quite a few others in the end would be playing it on the coach and stuff.
What clubs would you often do it with? Would it be Southampton?
Yeah, sometimes
Oh,
Southampton.
that's class.
But yeah, so I always had an interest and knowledge of players, and I watched a lot of football as well. It literally, it was, it was my life. It is my life. So, I think the difference is when you've retired from playing is you can have that off switch. Like you've done your work, and you don't need to. You don't need to be in peak physical condition, so you don't need to. Oh, I've got a late night here or there, or stuff planned. So the change of playing to being involved in football as a scout is different. You have to manage your time. Often you're on your own. I think you were saying about a day in the life of a scout, and it like varies day to day, week to week, because we'll do video work, which I've been doing today, to sort of get a view on people, and then you'll set up trips and you go away. Like last week, I was away in Spain to a couple of games. So it varies, and again, that was an appeal. I really like the variation. You go to the training ground, you have meetings online, you go to live games, whether that's in the UK or whether it's like across Europe. And also you get to see, especially now, like I'm covering midfield category for Chelsea, and it's worldwide. So I've watched South American, and I've been involved in getting a young lad signed from Vasco da Gama in January, which you get to see the Brazilian football compared to Premier League, compared to in France. So if you're a football geek, it's not bad.
Yeah, because I was gonna ask. Obviously, like you said, you went from that really rigid lifestyle. Do this, do that. You got to be on the team bus at this time, etc., etc. Was it quite weird to adjust to maybe the culture shock of then having that lifestyle where you could be a bit freer and you could spend your time with how you wanted to spend it?
Yeah, it took me quite a while actually. It took me a couple of years to really sort of like, let that settle and get used to it really.
Yeah, because that's been your life for 15 years plus, really.
Yeah, and I think that's what I'd say to anyone that's sort of like coming to the end of their career and moving on to the next stage is like don't expect it just to like be overnight or anything. It takes a bit of time. You need to experience other stuff to know, and then you'll settle into it. But it did take me a little while.
With regards to scouting itself, how much has the industry changed since you arrived, obviously, at Bournemouth and now at Chelsea? With the rise of data and things like that, has the industry changed a lot since you've been in the industry, or is it more so beforehand?
I think I probably came into it at a good time where there was always a bit of both. There's been data for quite a long time, and clubs have used it. It's definitely got heavier, more use of it. I've said a number of times to people, I almost had the best introduction to scouting in that I joined Bournemouth and I was covering France, so Ligue 1, and they literally just said, right, okay, go and choose your games and off you go. So I'd try and you got to work out logistically how you can get to places and how far places are, and I'd been to France before, but not travelled around the country. And I remember I did one trip quite early on, and I flew into Nice, covered a game at Nice. Then I got to go to Montpellier, and I thought, that's all right, I'll rent a car. Drove 4 hours.
What's your driving like?
Yeah, driving okay is all right. I'm quite good in the car, so I didn't mind it. But oh, sorry, getting a call.
All good.
But you just learn sort of like I was learning on the go.
Yeah.
I wasn't, like I said, I had a good sort of knowledge of players, probably like throughout Europe and stuff. But you're only seeing what the highlights show or whatever. But so I didn't really know loads about French football. So going and learning and just having to literally pick it up as you go along was great. I was always thankful very thankful for the opportunity to do that.
And going on from that, how do the midfielders nowadays that you're watching compare to the midfielders from 15, 20 years ago, in your opinion? Are there any stark differences?
Yeah, it's I mean, it's always one of those debates, isn't it? Like you hear it all the time, don't you? Could such and such in that era play in this era, and stuff like that.
Will Pele do it now, for example?
Yeah. You always get it. It's always an interesting conversation. I think there's a lot of technical stuff that have come into it, tactical. You see the influence from the German coaches that have come over that have been really successful, and a lot of sort of like ethos from other countries coming into the Premier League. And it's interesting. I genuinely believe, like Sean O'Driscoll, like I said earlier, he's beyond his years, and like his tactical knowledge and the way he used to set up. We used to change. I remember there was one game against QPR. We had 4 or 5 different formations within the game, and it came out afterwards. There was just sort of like some sort of media thing about it, and it's like what their manager was like. What was going on? I don't know.
I mean, that's part of the game now, isn't it? You see the likes of Pep doing it, for example.
Yeah, exactly. That's common like now. So I had a good sort of like learning under Sean about that sort of stuff, and it definitely has changed. I think the thing that I would say is now the physical level in the Premier League is bigger than it's ever been compared to other leagues. Like these guys that are coming into the league are animals. Like the slow players are not slow. Like the level is unbelievable. So it all comes down to the finer details. But yeah, tactically and like the way midfield's set up and the different. You've seen Man City with Pep reinventing it again. Pushing the fullbacks in, and it's one of those things. It will ever change, but I do say this quite a lot. But football's football, and you got to score more goals than the other team, and
That's the gist of it.
yeah.
You talked there about Sean O'Driscoll and the kind of the tactical ideas he brought them back in the day. Are there any things that you understand now from your time as a scout, whether it be technical or tactical, for example, that you kind of wish that you knew back then when you were still playing?
I sort of mentioned it earlier. It's not tactical or anything like that. It's having when you're involved in football, it consumes you, and you feel like everything is very dramatic. So if you lose at the weekend, it's like, oh God,
the worst thing in the world.
The worst thing in the world, and everyone wants to be winning and whatever, but everything's sort of like overhyped and over. Pressurized and stuff. But what I look for a lot in players is if they can understand and be calm in certain situations or take on information, just be totally level. My example is, because he's my age, was Wayne Rooney. From an early age, it didn't matter what you put in front of him or what you told him or what he needed to do. He understood and he was able to process it and be calm about what he was doing. Maybe not calm.
Yeah, he had his moments.
Yeah, he was able to like process it. So his intelligence level was high. So it took me a little while as a player to mature and get that. But the sooner you can get that, the better. That's it. That's the best advice I can give someone is really try and process what's going on and try and remain calm, which isn't easy.
Yeah.
But if you can try and practice things that help you do that sort of thing, the sooner that clicks, that's going to take you a long way in the game.
So that's for young players. What advice would you give to anyone who's maybe early in their scouting career or is looking to go into the scouting world?
Yeah, I'd say the first sort of there's coaching badges and scouting badges and stuff now that the FA run. The first one you can do online. It's really sort of like quite a simple introduction. I think it takes an hour to do online. It will sort of give you a bit of an insight as to how the journey might go and what you can do. So I think it's free to do. You can just go on the FA website and do it and sign up and get it done, and then it'll give you a bit of an insight. But if you like football, it's one of those things. The same as coaching. I'm doing another coaching badge. I'm going to do it in the end of May. Like I said, I haven't got the bug for it, but it's always learning. So if that's a free and easy one to do, if anyone that's got half an interest, it might be a good sort of like intro into it.
Perfect. Well, final question. I always like to end our podcast on this one. You have a time machine and you're able to go to any football game in history, stood up in the stands, watching on from the crowd. Which football game do you choose to go and watch? I'm always interested in this one.
It's a difficult one. It's very difficult. There's two games that stand in my mind for different reasons.
If it's not Bristol City, I don't want to hear it.
It's my goal against Gillingham.
It was a good goal, I have to say.
There's two. There's the World Cup 1966 win. I think just to be in that stadium at that time, for such an occasion on home soil, like you can only imagine what it would have been like.
Absolutely iconic.
Yeah, absolutely. And the second one would be World Cup final 98. And my favourite player ever is Ronaldo, R9.
France, Brazil.
There was obviously all the controversy around he had the fit before the game and he wasn't on the team sheet, then he was. And yeah, just to be there, to see that sort of unfolding. I watched the documentary on him not long ago, which is amazing. And it showed some sort of clips that I'd not seen before.
You're the first person to say France 98. People often say England 1966, obviously, Istanbul and Liverpool and AC, Liverpool and Barcelona. We've had Barcelona and PSG, the Champions League comeback. But yeah, nobody said France 98. I like it.
It's a bit different, yeah. It's a little bit different. It's just, honestly, he's like my favourite player, and just see it all unfolding. And obviously it went wrong for Brazil and France won, and I wouldn't have minded being there.
Well, you started talking about Brazil and now you are finishing it. Simon Gillett, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on. Hopefully come on again sometime soon.
Cheers, mate. Thanks very much.
Thank you, mate. Cheers.